Are you sure you want to go live? I guess so. I guess so. Oops. Here we'll go on this one. So, what's up? I'm gonna wait a couple minutes because I'm streaming, but not too long because I'm probably not gonna get many viewers, if any. So, I'm kind of treating it as a recording. Damn, my chin is like. My posture is way more apparent at the side angle. Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm gonna talk about shaligrams. That's what's happening here. Talking about shaligrams. We're talking about shaligrams. In the Shaligram Zone. Another episode of the Shaligram Zone. He lives. What's up? Yeah, I made it. Made it this long. It's good. I'm just gonna go through some interesting shaligrams, which is what these are. So this one, you missed our last anniversary. Sorry about that one. So this is a shaligram. It is sacred in Hindu religion. It is considered an ammonite, but is actually caused by current flows of water that occurred during the global flood. That in this location of the Himalayas where the shaligrams are found, water was being focused through resistance, which then led to the formation of shaligrams by eddies in the water that included this material that was under such high pressure that it effectively was flowing at extremely high velocity, probably, but in a manner where it eddied in small vortices inside of material and differentiated the pyrite and the shale and everything else about it. And these are vastly misinterpreted in modern science to be actual fossils when they are actually pseudo-fossils that look like fossils but are purely geological in origin, and their nature is like a fractal, atomic, planetary, galactic, all those types of unit systems that we have labeled like planets. I think I might have said that. Are all the fractal iterative, the same thing over and over, that in the case of shaligrams formed inside of rocks to show us the structures in ways and the process in ways that otherwise are not able to be seen but are frozen in these solid rocks that still restore or store the details of the process that shaped them on their surface and within them in every detail, because it was shaped by a current flow process that then made these. This one is a good example of one that cannot be a fossil because ammonites usually, as they spiral out from a center, they start narrow and get wider and wider and wider and wider. But in this case, it actually limits itself to the bottom half of the structure on this side and forms a complete structure here like this of an ammonite that has the boundary, like the around the boundary, it's like this. What just happened? Like that, like this. This is the innards, smooth, kind of just curved surface that then branches off to dendrites along the boundary. Dendrites, but in here it's smooth. But on this one, the dendrites are on the edge. Like these things are over here. There's paths over here. That wouldn't be there if it was just the middle. It would be like this. This is the middle of it. It's a little abnormal because it's in a larger structure of an eddy that apparently, essentially an eddy was forming in this stone, but anomalously some pressure was being applied to this location of the stone specifically. So we can see even the ribs, like these are down here, like right above this structure, and we can see it there. These things are forming like really big versions of these things that go atop the ribs at the boundary of the matrix around the ammonite structure that like overlap almost like a V shape at that boundary. This one's not the best example of it, but these are very reminiscent of that. And then between them is a crack. There. Crack. There. Boundary. There. So it's like there are boundaries where current got between this material, led to certain positions that are now etched as ribs. Looks what happens in valleys and ravines, driving through mountains. Yeah, there's a really good example. Where these are from is itself like them, because the structure is iterative across scales, and it's not a fossil, but it is a iterative across scale structure that was occurring in that location, making them. There was also larger scale, the same thing happening in the same location, and it shaped the area. Where is it? Screenshots. No. This is kind of doing it, but it's not very visible in this image. Like here. Not the best of examples, I'm thinking of one specifically. Damn it, oh, that's why I can't find it. Because it's not... Yeah, definitely. There's some that really look like they have the dendrite structures at their ends. But it's like down near the river, typically. Not in that one. Ramp. Ramp! Oh man, I have no idea where that image is now. Figures. Oh, there it is. It's totally this one. There it is. No, that's like the area, but these images are still not what I'm looking for. It's kind of can see it over there, but anyway, let's keep going, Shaligrams. So this one is incredible because it has damage to the rock here. I can open it. Oh, I took way more images here. Okay. So we can see like a rib there, on top of this, which is not at the same height as this in the stone. This whole area is depressed. It like goes down over here pretty much. Down, and then has this depressed region that itself has a ammonite's lobe shape, like one of these over here, at like half of the height though. Right there. Like it was being pushed down, so like an eddy's happening, so current is flowing in here in a eddy that is also pushing boundaries by cutting certain energetically optimal locations that are essentially like the top of a spiral or the far end of a spiral, which is where current flows here, making this like indentation structure. Because current flows there, that's like a spot that the current flows. So it makes an indentation just systematically. But it also goes out the top and bottom. But when it went out the top here, it seems to have gone out the top because we see all these ribs that continue over here. So it's not like the shell wasn't larger in some way. Like it should be larger. Whatever was here should extend all the way up here because the ribs are here. In this area, there's still ribs. But then it drops down to like the half of the energy level of the eddy because it's being pushed down. Like maybe something like this is just pushed into the Shaligram while it was forming. Cool, that's good to hear. See what I'm saying? So the top had to exist, but it clearly doesn't in the final product. How does a shell morph in the process of fossilization? It doesn't, but an eddy current can have pressures applied to it that can morph the eddy when it's like able to grow to the eddy size that the ammonite is, but some pressure pushes in at some point that then literally prevents the flow and forces it to take another shape. And maybe because it's like half energy, there's even some like energetic relationship of where this other Shaligram was, kind of like these that are stacked. Where is it? This one? Like there might have been another Shaligram kind of off the side like this, just energetically, literally one with like this, but divided in as being two rocks. Oh Lord. This one's like almost like counterbalance here and then eroding out this side. So like as it erodes, it almost creates a backstop on one side that then allows for pressures to push the other side, but then it actually pushes in this way. As it pushes out this way, it pushes in this way, and literally creates a counter arc over here at this nucleus, going counter to that one. But then, like, this is even directly above the ammonites, like, dendritic region, where almost always there's a current. I know. A current that goes down that it then is interacting with another current in the eddy that's applying a pressure outward that then bends it, but then it continues across past the resistance. And because there's a pressure of the current going this way, it then continues along its original trajectory. Once it passes the resistance, it then comes back over here pretty much. There's probably also other resistances that generally make that so it doesn't just like continue across. So this Shaligram is just incredible. The shape, like the way this is shaped, doesn't actually make sense randomly, because science. That's good to hear. I don't have many fans. I got like an electric fan. That's nice sometimes when it's hot. But so the story, according to modern science, would be that this stone eroded to have this shape by river currents. And by mere happenstance of the circumstances of erosion and time, this rock arrived at a state where it has a lump on the side. It doesn't really make sense. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's a fair point. Even like the way it continues here, it's very orderly. Like it's got a little thing up here, a little thing down here. I guess not. We can even see it going from up here and then wrapping down to a different energy. Close-up image, we definitely can see the ribs on top of it. Is conclusive. Conclusively has ribs directly above it. Like, I don't need this in my hands to see that, and no one scientifically looking at it needs the rock in their presence to recognize it has ribs on the surface here where it should not have them. They even bend, and now I look at it a little bit, and these are going this way, and these seem to kind of bend. Like, relative to here, like it starts bending. It looks like, especially over here. I don't know if that's just because of it going around, or if it actually has some slight anomalous bending. Maybe it was forming like another chakra. Like one of these, but over somewhere over here, but it just didn't have material, but it kind of had like a eddy center. I don't see any evidence over here of some kind of small eddy forming here. That was kind of like here, eroding into this area at all. Yes, I do. I do still smoke. I just did, really. I just did. Looks a little lopsided there. Like that doesn't. Maybe it's right, but. Right. Normal, whatever. The fact this is still there strongly suggests something was pushing on it, because it would have probably eroded this material away more otherwise. Like, it looks like it eroded here, kind of around. We can really see the boundary here. Really clearly see. This thing is such a disproof of basically every science. Not like disproof, like essentially disproof, but like a foundational, we don't know what we're talking about kind of proof. Like, it is a proof of the fact of the matter is the scientific understanding of reality is not describing that which actually is. It's unfortunate, but also fortunate. It's kind of fun. Kind of fun to find all these things out on my own, kind of, in whatever way. Maybe not on my own. On my own. I feel like that's a song. Maybe Les Mis. Oh yeah, speaking of song, I had some music I was gonna play. Les FM. Les FM, oui. Ah, oui, les FM. Ding, bang, 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 bang. Okay, let's check out this one. That's good to hear. I should go back. Shaligrams. Where am I looking? This one. Sounds like Song I recognize. It says copyright free. So I bought this one. I saw it and I bought it. I have like $200. I now have $100. Oh no, what am I doing to myself? I probably spent around $1,000 on Shaligrams at this point across time. Oh, the Shaligrams I have though. This one is incredible. So here, it's just at the front. It's flat side over here. And then the chakra here. Notice the chakra, if we just go down, 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 is the boundary of this like crack here. That then if we go over here, down is generally this boundary. I mean, this is also the chakras are kind of angled, so I'm drawing a line based on the angle of the chakra, kind of angled at them. And then over here, I don't know if it's maybe related to like this boundary wrapping around over here. We can't really tell where that would have been. But so, what's really crazy is this ammonite underneath it. And this is only one face of this stone. This is like the most normal face of the stone. The most basic. The least amount of cool things. Although this is incredible. This thing is a chakra over here. With like rib lines starting to be etched over here. So there was an eddy forming here. Basically. But here's my interpretation, is that this stone had some underlying pressure below it that essentially provided resistance for it to form where it formed. But as a result of this underlying pressure below it, like the table it's on, some underlying pressure was there that was probably more water-based. And maybe other Shaligram based, and maybe Earth based. I don't know. But some pressure that was below it, and this system starts to form an eddy. It's forming an eddy, and some of its current starts to go down this way. It's probably there's like resistance, like some kind of resistance also over here. So when it goes off, it goes down as well, and then up. But when it goes up, it runs into this current coming off. So it goes up, but then it runs into it. Actually, I'm thinking about this. It probably would form an eddy this way, based on this crack. I'm not completely sure if it's being fed by this system. It was probably forming an eddy here that then when it went up into this other eddy, it ran into it, and because there's pressure behind it that's effectively making it form an eddy here, it couldn't go away from the stone, and it couldn't go up into this area because there's this current there. So instead it just dove down into the stone and cut a path here along, like essentially along a boundary of the eddy that was forming a chakra with ridges here. But then it ran into this under pressure to a point where it actually bent back and went up towards the chakra at like the perfect point of resistance almost. Because essentially, if there's a chakra here, it means that was a flow of the physical particles of this stone in an overall flow while this eddy was happening. It wasn't just a stone that was solid and like a eddy formed on its surface that etched into the stone. It was a fluid material of all of the grains of the stone that then was in flow with the water that was flowing, that then flowed in eddies itself, leading to the pyrite and differentiation of materials in certain locations of the shaligrams that actually distributed the large grain particles into the interior where they couldn't get out as easily, while the small grain particles were able to flow through the system and down to the base of the shaligram, where they then ultimately form a under layer of material due to a resistance underneath them that pushes up, that then causes a flow outward to form a bottom side that then feeds back to the top of this current and creates a fully cycling flow of these particles. Sometimes, in this case, it actually was probably more formed, and this eddy started to happen after the shaligram was further along in the process for certain reasons that I'm going to get into based on other faces. But because there's a flow downward, if there's a flow down here and then back up into it, possibly because that's just energetically, there's pressures this way, a balance at the center, so it goes up at the center, but it goes into the resistance of this other current, so it just goes back down. I bet. I don't know where you are, I don't know why I said that. It's humid here, so I'll bet. It's hot as fuck, that's for sure. But it's summer. Climate change. People don't know about the doom shape talking about climate change. I'm like, bro, we got other things to worry about here. But so, in so doing, what's crazy is then this thing, effectively, it couldn't form a larger eddy, and instead this current fed off this way and went down this way into resistance and then went back up this way to a point where it literally formed a chakra, or began to form a chakra like one of these, and turn this chakra over here into a lobe. So basically there's an eddy out along this plane, so there's a resistance above, there's a resistance below of some resistance that this is on. So there's only so much space for this eddy to form here, but it's forming an eddy along a perpendicular plane to the other eddy and to the surface below it, so it only has so much space, at which point it then changes form and begins to become a parallel eddy with the eddy and this above it and the surface. Cleveland, oh man. I remember Delaware humidity was brutal. It's not the same in Florida. It's just not the same. I don't know why. Maybe because it rains so much, it almost gets rid of it for periods to make it less constant. This music seems like it's not going to change. So maybe I should I say music. No, I can't do it. I don't feel like looking. So now we're starting to see over here. There's a lot going on. Then this is the top angle. Another ammonite imprint with the chakra here, with interesting distribution of material around it. Oh Lord. I don't like those quotes. So we've got chakras here, pointing generally over here. This is not what I find most interesting, but I haven't really looked at this. So we got this structure here. It goes like this. Kind of looks like it's some kind of fossil or something, ammonite, like cross section. And yet, if we look at it closer, there's like features across it here that actually go up this way and over, like here, up and around. That center, perhaps kind of towards here, like it was forming an eddy here, essentially. So it was forming a eddy along this plane to make this feature, but then it was forming an eddy along this plane, interacting to actually create these like segments across. Then maybe another chakra forming here. Something going on here that then leads into a chakra with tears. This goes across this way to here. This points up that way to here. Showing an energetic relationship. Like they're not randomly positioned things, they're actually at relevant positions to one another. Like this goes this way, goes up this way towards here. It almost looks like a bending flow. It goes this way over here to this thing. So like droplet type, not droplet, but some kind of, I guess, eddy current that was like this, cutting out the boundary. Where the current, there was some eddy generally centered on this area. But that eddy's boundary is where like a high flow rate current was happening, which then was flowing around enough to cut in just at the boundary. Where similarly that was going on here, I guess, but not cutting in, and instead differentiating the material, stripping it of the subtle particles and leaving behind the larger grain particles of pyrite. So there's no more shale, no more of the black shale stripped over here. And this, some reason it didn't really strip here, maybe because it was getting into the stone and stripped along the boundary inside. Probably looks like it actually. Here it looks like it didn't get in here either. Instead it kind of got in and went instead this way, which would point to that it was probably an eddy going this way, because it would, if it was going this way, it would go off of it in a direction. Okay, I'm recording though, so I'm gonna keep talking. So, we got this row, and over here, again, it didn't get in. Instead, it just stripped the stone of shale, leaving behind pyrite. Maybe it's much more prevalent in the stone, and it's just stripping it or depositing it, transporting it in a way, and stripping it, probably more so that. But then another one where it got in, and it got in a way where instead of this, where it just eroded around the boundary, it got in enough to start to actually remove the center. And if we follow this further, maybe, I guess it might relate to that. I don't know. Like, pointing kind of here. There's even like a little, almost like an arrowhead shape. Like this. Whatever was going on here went this way, this way, this way, up here, and then like slipped into an area. Ow. Where it then really eroded here. Possibly interacting with these spots. Something like that might be, seems like going on. I don't know. Arc here, the way that arcs is kind of similar to the way that arcs. Like, why would an ammonite have this arcing thing going on right next to it? Kind of like this arc. And this arc, this arc's got nothing to do with this ammonite. This arc got nothing to do with that ammonite. And I guess even if I go further, maybe up here, there's kind of like a interaction from over here to up here. Perhaps this location was an outlet that was transporting shale, that when it came out, it actually deposited a area of shale here that is like across this way. So it came out here, but then this current, or this eddy, must have been flowing around, in, and behind, out, across. In, behind, out, across. Cutting in here, after cutting in over here. This actually looks a lot like itself. Now that I like one of these, this shape, but at an angle, like from here. Like having a in thing like here. So maybe there was even a eddy forming off of it here that was starting to create an ammonite shape imprint over here. Of like the lobe, just one of the lobes doing the same thing as this thing, but in its own way that seemingly some reason created doop 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 doop. I guess if this is an outlet, maybe it then goes back in, hits over here, goes out here, boom, hits here, starts cutting, and it bounces effectively, like skips, and then starts to cut in here, where then it like catches hold because it's cutting in, so it's able to get into the stone there, where over here I guess it had resistance enough where it just energetically, the path of least resistance, moved it over here quickly enough that it didn't erode across the stretch, and then it did it again and again and then again up here in an anomalous way, but coming out of this location. Possibly as it came out, running into another current. Like if it's coming out of the stone. Out of the stone. Out of the stone. And there's some other current that then is creating a large scale eddy that is creating this ammonite lobe. Then it stands to reason that perhaps that large scale, or that other current creating the large scale eddy, also interacted with this outlet in a manner to create a eddy off in this direction here to just create another ammonite structure across here for some reason. I don't know why I would exactly do that, but it seems like that's probably what happened. So some current going across this way or going across this way. Possibly that's how it kind of cuts. Like over here, this cut. Really small scale, some outlet from this eddy comes out of the stone hill here. And then projects in a perpendicular eddy to the side that then kind of starts cutting through because it's being projected like this, which leads to the path that it then takes to go back around, but it actually has like that feature of being an outlet that runs into another current flow that then leads to an eddy at the surface that cuts through the boundary and makes these patterns systematically. And then over here there's another chakra though, and along this plane. So I guess the boundary of this ammonite relates to some other current flow, maybe going in this way. That's like creating a chakra here. And holding a boundary here. That then it bend like holding a boundary here and dot 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 to over here. This area, like holding this boundary, and this deflects off of it. It doesn't like become one with it, it deflects off of it and goes over this way because there's a pressure that this outlet is running into and going this way instead. Which then would suggest maybe it goes like sideways this way and this way. So maybe whatever's going on here interacts over here. Maybe even takes the shape of this because it doesn't just like arc here. It also arcs here maybe, like to here. Arcing to maybe to the far side of this, and this kind of connected across to create a larger space. Oh my god. Dear God. I didn't notice any of this yet. Still haven't even looked at the things I was most interested in. Also, one other thing I did notice, there's like this kind of thing going on, but over here, way more subtle, but where it didn't erode through. But like, looking kind of like this stuff going on up here. And in that, it's like more eroded. This also looks like it has a circle. Whoa. And so does this, kind of. Insta bought it. Oh my god, this thing. I cannot wait to get this under a microscope. Oh my god. I hope it's good. We'll see what I hope it's like that one then. Like this one. A little bit of this. Hope it's like this one. This one's so cool. There's so many features on it. Oh my god. I hope it's like that. No, not the same, but because it doesn't really have lines like that, but just epic to see under the microscope. It's got a good flat surface for it too, over here, which I'm pretty stoked about, where a lot of the details are. Okay, then we see some ribs here, like real subtle, almost like an ammonite shape was happening here. So there was an eddy, and then we got a chakra type location that didn't erode fully, but was eroding. So there's an eddy here along the boundary of this also. So it looks like here, over this way, over here, was kind of some current flow boundary that was like a tear outward from this one, relating to that. Trying to decide what sequence all of this happened in. Because essentially I interpret this whole shaligram was part of a larger shaligram and came out of it. Kind of like a portion like over here when it's flatter. Like this flat face was a flat face of a ammonite, and then the backside all the way over here was like a couple, like it was basically a chamber of an ammonite, the last chamber of an ammonite that then itself became an ammonite, or yeah, like had an ammonite imprinted into the chamber itself. But the whole shaligram is a piece of a larger ammonite that is no longer part of. Like, I guess I can just go to pieces like this. Like a piece that then in here, like it naturally had a location that was like a little nook that it then actually eroded into an ammonite. An eddy was able to form in the case of this one that eroded it into an ammonite. And is probably still fluid when it came out of the larger ammonite. But I wonder if maybe these features we're looking at are part of the process of the larger ammonite starting to erode the structure around it. But I mean, if that were the case, then I don't know why it would break free, because it's really not far along, so it doesn't seem like it would have broken free by these currents. If they're only pixelated without creating an entire band like over here that cuts through. Huh. This might actually be going sideways, cutting it across in a way where like sometimes they'll have this and other times it'll just be missing, like entirely gone, but the rest of it's there. Maybe it's related to a process like this. Like this looks kind of like a nucleus region of said ammonite structure that was eroding around it in all these features. Oh my god, it's so incredible. Oh my god. It's just like, just looking at this, seeing the surroundings, it's hard to not just be like, whoa. So this then, which then went up here, looks like maybe goes over this way too, some reason, into here. And then maybe, instead of just going this way, also cuts across all the way. Where then it interacts with this other current, which is basically what is happening. Like, this is a current. It's just at an angle that makes it look weird, and it's pixelated because it's like catching in the stone, and it is pixelated because it's like actually coming out in a single location, like a spray. So it's not like broad. So it just flows in, flows in, flows in, flows in. Some of it going out this way, which is interesting. It's kind of at a center point, but a little lopsided. But it's also kind of at like the energetically relevant point that it comes out of. Like these. Like it comes out of the top, the bottom, the far end, and then like 1/3, 2/3 type of locations. Like top, 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 bottom, far end, 1/3, 2/3. It kind of looks like if you envision the larger structure with all the dupe, dot, 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 dot things, which actually, now that I think about it, are probably the beginnings of like forming the ridges that then maybe create like a connection between them over top that then leads to an actual imprint structure rather than just like dots like this. That's so profound. Oh my god. But so, it kind of looks like if this is a center, like it's going off of a 1/3, 2/3 type of position, kind of. I don't know. Which then, if we go up this way, this goes over to there, this goes over to there. Maybe they're going in opposite directions. Like this goes over here, goes in here, erodes in, and then it comes out somehow, where then it erodes in here and here, and back, comes back this way. I don't know. Or maybe it gets moved between them, or maybe it goes multiple directions, like this one and this one. Could this one go feed in over here and then flow this way and this way? Because it's possible that this current coming out of here, around this actual opening that's being eroded around this, a current flow out here goes in like right over here, gets past this other one, and then goes in because there's resistance out here, which is related to why this is going in here, but then it comes out at a more direct angle, so it goes further, but then it goes into the resistance more, so it gets more abruptly shoved into the stone. So it cuts in, forms a chakra, and literally comes out and etches over here where it runs into here, and then into here, and into here. Maybe. Maybe. This one looks kind of like it's more angled, as if it came from this side. I'd have to see it more clearly. It kind of looks more angled over here. We also see another one over there, up there, so it's kind of trailing up further, separating from this one a bit. But the way it does this looks almost like it could do it repetitively in a fractal way, where it, like this here, imagine this, or this, whatever, whichever one, is itself in a chain of subtler flows that are doing both of these things. And that chain of subtler flows is eroding this, and it's creating this structure up here. Now imagine that this structure up here is this structure in that chain. So it basically is doing it fractally. Makes sense to me. Probably is the reality of the situation, and it's incredible that it's doing it fractally in a scale that it can be held like this. I mean, they're just made to be studied. So if we look over here, this goes across, spirals in some eddy here, so I guess the pressure, there's some pressure over here that as this goes across, it's more below than above on this segment. It pushes it upward, and rather than eddying downward, it pushes it upward, which then again runs into resistance in a manner where it goes into the stone here, goes in, comes out here. First here though, see this little lip? Like there's a little lip there. Like it literally eroded a smaller one and then there and grew and then got to a larger size and then eroded in over here and then came out over here and then started eroding this way, where then it ran into, I guess, these other currents, and because the other current is flowing this way, it like went ramped off of it and away from the stone so that it did not erode back into the stone here. Meanwhile, another eddy is forming over here at the chakra center, a chakra that then has a boundary that abruptly flattens here, flat, like this. It's doing this in the shape of this one, even though it's not in the same location where it should be. This flat would be more like along the edge of the ammonite, which doesn't make sense really. Flat. And that flat line is exactly parallel. Exactly. With this, which points seemingly at that boundary. This points possibly at that boundary. It looks maybe a little higher if we go all the way across this kind of thing, but it also looks like down here has a different angle than over here. So possibly a relationship where maybe it went in here, interacted with this flow, went over this way, created this, and then when came back to it, the location it was at initially, kind of thing. Like, like that one, like this, doing something of this nature. So I drew this. I drew this. I think on this one. So there's the chakra there. I drew a connection from here across here. So there's a. Let's go back. There is a thread, like this dark line. There is like this. Like etching in, cutting in underneath material like this. Like this line could, if the process continued, it could have actually cut down and connected over and created the totality of the ammonite shape, but it only cut in that much and didn't finish the process. The same thing is going on over here, where there's a cutting in along this ammonite. But this cutting in is a little weird shaped. It's not really typical shaped. But it seems to connect from generally where this one is, across right there, to go up there. Also, these are of interest. These like lines here that seem to continue over here as well and have some boundary. Like if we look at it like this, there's like a shape. Almost like a snake head type thing. Almost like a snake head type thing. Maybe it was coming back the other way. Because that would suggest the current was actually going this way. If it's a snake head type thing and not a tail type thing, literally it would suggest the current flow. The head of the current was over there. So maybe it was going this way over this way. Current went across into it, but basically deflected off it here, while really it was coming back this way. Maybe even it went from here to here to then go in there, down this way, in, or in, out, in. Doesn't make sense unless it only partially goes in and back out. I guess that's possible. It goes in, comes back out over here, but some of it's going that way. Wow, it goes in this way and comes out over here, so it like divides. I'm just thinking it's possible based on this position. Like this generally points at it. So if there's a current coming out of here that points over this way, that runs into itself because it's a current. It's not just like a single starting flow. It is flowing long enough that it's gone over here, gone this way, gone over here, done all these things, came back this way, and so it's interacting with itself, comes over this way, interacts here, probably because of resistance. So like the current going across this way that it runs into, pushes it this way, but then interacts there because there's a cross current, so it creates an ammonite-esque thing going on there. Then it goes up here, it goes back though. I mean, that kind of makes sense. So it's possible it literally goes in this side and then out over here at both locations, above and below. It kind of looks even like a middle energy level. Like the top of it is a little above here. Like because it's feeding into both of them, maybe. they're actually energetically coupled, like, at the same levels. Welcome back. Well, you've got mail. Welcome. Then a bunch of stuff going on up here. Sorry, I've been talking. It's it's been pretty exciting. So maybe it goes in here, comes over here, does an eddy here because of some other currents. That just, it can't go any further and just goes back. Which, if you think about it, like a current going, if this happens where a current flows out of a point that then interacts with its surroundings and leading to that point extending sideways and cutting this path, a path like this. If it couldn't go any further, it would probably bend back and start cutting back along next to it to widen the path, as it then provides space for the current to flow in to then actually like feed through and begin to cut more readily. So it's possible it would begin by just cutting a portion, trying to etch through here, like a really larger system ammonite. That's so large. This ammonite was so subtle, or this shaligram. This stone, relative to this larger ammonite, was so subtle that these things were like fractally make sense in here. I don't know. Although this seems kind of like its center, so it couldn't have been that much bigger. It just must have been the interaction of all of the systems of eddies, because it's not the same eddy as the other eddy here that's happening here. And then this itself is part of another ammonite, I believe, quite with a high level of certainty. I mean, I'd put it at approaching absolute certainty as much as anything else I'm certain about. That it was once part of another larger shaligram. So there is a larger ammonite that was not just bounded to here as like its nucleus. So there are many ammonite structures that must have been interacting. Okay, I don't know what's going on over here. It's kind of hard to tell without seeing it in person. Sweet, I cannot wait. This is kind of interesting. It looks kind of like a Siphuncle, but there's a shock right here. Eddy that was forming here. So there's an eddy forming around this location, eroding this, forming almost like a seashell, like one of the ones that come to a point, that a rounded kind of shape almost looking imprint of the actual structure. Next to it was another eddy that was then pushing its boundaries, while over here its boundaries, like, it didn't erode past here or past here either, or past here, because other pressures were preventing it over here. Over here, this eddy was at least participating. This looks like it's definitely part of some other larger thing going on around it. It might actually be related to the ammonite structure over there too. It kind of looks like it might be at a good relative position to here. I don't know. Don't know. Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait to get this. Then another phase where I don't know what's going on in terms of where this is. I don't know. It must be the bottom. It must be the bottom. On the bottom, there's really interesting things too. Chakra here with an eddy around it, just like the other one's another chakra. And then something curious going on over here, another chakra with even with like a something there, almost like it's eroding different possible chakras that at the same time. This, the way this is, so this continues and then continues. Definitely a relationship. And maybe instead of continuing, because it looks like it, whatever is happening here, it looks like it went this way and ran into pressure and bent. But it looks into pressure and bent and formed eddies. Pressure from over here, like it's going towards this air, this boundary pretty much. Deflects off of this area. Notice the way this is shaped is very much like over here, the way this is shaped. Very much the same thing, just eroded less in a way where there's an eddy here. So if we go back and look at like this, or this, maybe there's multiple eddies, like an eddy that's happening on one side that still has some semblance of the process. Also, it looks like it's doing it again over here. Some reason, though, it has like a erosion, so it's really forming a chakra and even an ammonite bit there. This segment, this narrow segment, is kind of seeming to form the beginnings of an actual ammonite shell, but not doing it quite, but doing it. And if we look at this, it doesn't just go up towards there, it deflects over, and what do you know, goes right to there. And this goes along the boundary of these things and points up, especially its far boundary, essentially at there, especially accounting for the curvature of the rock probably. And then here there's a chakra with the inlet outlet kind of side of lobe, and then some what looks to me, it's really blurry, like there's actually a drainage, like out from here in down in actually a drainage from here into here. I don't know. Possible. I'll see soon what the surface details really reveal. There's another angle, so we can see also this chakra and this chakra are not the same chakra. Notice it goes in, whereas if it were to be another tier of this chakra, it would go the other way. But it's going in, so interestingly, it looks like it kind of could be, but it's like it's dividing into another one. Like it forms an eddy that has a chakra that literally extends down further than here. Extends down here. But part of that eddy starts to form another eddy, like separate from the first one, that then backs it, making it have a counter face chakra, which again is very systematic. Like, where's a good example? Like this one. chakras. Boundary, and then the spot where like current flows like over along a region. Not randomly positioned relative to one another. It's doing it again. Notice this. This is a good example. Here's a lobe like this, but over here inwardly facing. Here's a chakra, so here's an ammonite, here's an ammonite. What is this lobe doing? It's not a lobe. It's the only way to explain it. No. Doesn't look anything alike. Nothing alike. Again, tiered. Again, this one's very distinctly tiered and even gently eroded out here. Stopped over here. Chakra facing downward, but we can see it from the top one, it looks like. I don't know if that's the case. I can't tell. I don't have all the images in this one. Here's it just doing it over and over in a way that's... Here it's doing it where it's cutting in, like an eddy forms here, cuts in and forms a larger space for the eddy, but then it cuts in and just does it repetitively to a point where the structure doesn't really make sense. You even see it cutting in down here and again down here. That's a big ass ammonite, or an eddy that kind of just like skirted along the boundary over here in a way that it was able to because of the propagation of currents that this really tall chakra had. So that would suggest that the tallness of a chakra strongly relates to the strength of the current flow downward. Notice it's this downward side. It's not up here because current flow goes from the top down to the bottom and back up around the side of the ammonite, the side of the eddy. Not through the eddy, around the side, back up because pressures push it back up, and it flows back to the top, and then it cycles back through. So it's not going to create this same type of outcome unless it's fully forming at this point. If we just look from here upward, there's still chakra behind this up to there. But then the top is probably right there, and there's no visible chakra because it's not the bottom. So that's probably very systematic that the bottom one is taller than the top one in a way that would probably be undeniable proof they're not fossils, because there is no reason that a fossil would arrange itself in a matrix that then subsequently orders itself to systematically have the taller chakra below on the bottom of the rock and the shorter chakra at the top. There's no reason ammonites would do that. Shaligrams, almost certainly, now that I've realized that potential and looked at this one just to like kind of be like, does this one do it? Probably what's going on. Almost systematically, they therefore would be like that, where they're at least balanced and at maybe even imbalanced towards the bottom. If there's an imbalance, it's towards the bottom almost always, probably. There may be circumstances where like the back pressure maybe or something leads to an expansion of uh, the etching upward because it's not able to get into the eddy, so it etches upward as it's trying to get in, but there's like a backlog and at that point that maybe is leading to more trying to find a path to a point where it etches and creates a larger chakra. So it's probably possible to find them. It's just probably so much less likely for them to be taller at the top. Sometimes it's hard to tell what is the top. The top is a thing, though. I'm not just saying, what do you mean the top? The top of the Shaligram is a thing. Like, this is the top of the Shaligram. This is the bottom, because this stone formed standing this way. It wasn't upside down relative to this with, like, the direction of the earth. The direction of the earth was down in this image. And every Shaligram has a top and bottom. Whether or not it's apparent depends on how etched it is in the process. Sometimes they're more rounded and it's not as clear. Like this one's not as clear. It could be the top. This could be the top, but this kind of gives a clue of which it is, because it's got like a boundary up here. The bottoms don't do that because this is like the draining location through the drain, so it forms an actual boundary up here before the bottom does. The bottom doesn't have that. Sometimes they'll do it when it really has low amounts of matrix, but if there's enough matrix, it tends to just form a storage at the base, like this one. Storage of the matrix at the base that then the flow is pushing into, and that storage then is forced to flow back over top the eddy. But then it frequently will take a single path because it's flowing upward, literally. Due to pressures around it, it's not just flowing outward, it's flowing upward into resistance of the general resistance that is making it go down of pressures. And so it bends around, but if it were to go every direction around the eddy, it would not be able to have enough flow rate to get atop the eddy. So instead it ends up systematically taking a single path that it then turns into a frozen visible conduit that we can see. So it forms this mass, and then the conduit path wraps around from the bottom up atop the ammonite structure, specifically at its largest growth point in this instance, at least. I don't think it always does that, but in this instance, at the largest growth point, it wrapped over. Maybe that's what it tends to do, where it wraps over, it kind of squeezes the ammonite and cuts off. Maybe this spiral continued over here, but this flow of matrix physically chopped it away enough where the eddy is no longer visible over here, and it's just kind of ended at some point that now is inside there. But really, there was a flow from over here, from down at the base, that wrapped up over here, probably at like the last possible point kind of thing. Like we're flowing around, and even turning this structure. So then it just upwells here, and then it drains down the chakra, where then it fans out into the eddy if it runs into resistance, which the pyrite would tend to do more than the shale. I don't know. I don't want to mess with them because I got this perfect boom, 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 boom. If I mess with them, they want to be the same. Boom, boom, boom. So that's that one, though. Sorry. Sorry to deny your request. Yeah, it totally was. Is that better? I just don't like it too big because it blocks the actual shaligram. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to. Let's see, was I done talking about that one? I guess I was. This one, eroding. Let me go to the folder. I'm gonna stop here pretty soon. Guess I've been streaming like almost 2 hours. We talked about this one before, but I saw something last night that kind of blew me away. I was like, holy shit. Sometimes I just cover details though. Like I'll be like, over here or something. This chakra is being eroded across here and here. It's a little too closely packed. That's kind of interesting. But this shaligram is incredible. Did I talk about this one? I thought I did. But then I realized I never saved the picture. So I saved these pictures in case I didn't talk about it, but I can't remember. Maybe I'll just talk about it. I got to. Probably at like 2 in like 20 minutes. If I take that long for this. But so, as it goes, the ammonite is being eroded, but in this case, this one's real odd. It has a opening over here that really shows there was a flow through the stone here, but not a flow that was like the whole eddy. I mean, I do kinda, yeah, I gotta get up early enough to be up early enough. But what I liked about this, I mean, this one's incredible. It's the shape up here, it's got this like mass looking shape up here, first of all. Weird shape. Kind of reminiscent of how this one is shaped. Like it's all this going on. all these other shapes, but then this shape. Kind of reminiscent of that. Even actually, kind of reminiscent of just the shape in general, like there. Like there. Makes me wonder if some sort of eddy was happening over here, like this one had. Like an eddy was happening over here that was then interacting with another eddy to contribute to making this like square rectangular mass over here though, but in a way where it ultimately didn't really erode into the rock as much as shape it, and then got into the rock by the eddy, like cutting in over here. I don't know, because it definitely had an intense current go through it to do this. I guess it could have just, yeah, it probably just etched around it, like the surrounding area. We can see lots of little holes. We literally can see this background right there. Background. Hole. Lots of little holes where current just punctured the shape. Puncture. Cutting the shape into the stone. I made it bigger. I made it as large as I feel I can. I barely want to be on the screen. Then a lobe out this way. This is kind of lopsided relative to this. Way smaller, narrow up here. Way larger. Lots of little related stress marks looking things where current was probably eroding along paths of this shape. Coming out here and then kind of going sideways. Like the previous one. Not that one, but this one. Coming out this location, going sideways, but also this sideways was kind of interior where it didn't erode this segment, but cutting across. Doing the same thing here. Same thing. See, you can't see. See, you can't see. Can't see. Can't see the thing. See what happens? Can't see the thing. Well, much love, much love. Looks very much like this. Dip. Same thing. Different location, different circumstances, but same general thing going on. I get. Maybe if I wasn't recording, I'd be more willing to just kind of do whatever. And then in the back of this rock are these types of things going on that are really weird, like their position. Like if we look at this one, like one's over here, one's over here. They're not actually conjoined. Like it eroded two directions, and then they interacted in opposition as they approached one another and layered. Instead of running into one another, they just naturally layered themselves. But then behind it, there's ribs happening, like the ribs along the ammonite, like these things. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for that between the ribs are more ribs. Little tiny ribs. Little tiny ones. But if we look at the here, like they ain't tiny on this side at least. I don't know if we get an image at this angle, the type of angle of up here. I think it's the opposing side, or is it here? It might be here. I can't tell. Wait, this one's up towards this side. Up towards the big side. Big side, little side. So it's probably here. That probably is here. So looking in the other side. Like from this angle, I guess. In here. These ribs lead into tiny ribs where it's like segmented. Thought that was interesting. And then I'm down for some Cash App. Nah. Then the chakras is weird. Like there's so much going on here. It's got lots of thin layers, so it didn't really cohesively form over here. My interpretation is that it's had a larger structure that was not yet eroded, that had a chakra boundary like this. Like it went down, over, down, over, down, over, to a point where this segment was part of this segment. But then it divided it, but it still had the ribs of the chakra. But then it started to turn those ribs into dendrites more visible on the upper side. Which is what I am saying in here, as like this. Like it was doing this, but it literally, like imagine it has a chakra here and a cross, and then it cuts down into the chakra. But maybe it had like another shape over here, so it's kind of like it's not just cutting down, because then there's no down here. It just goes straight across. But in this case, it goes down and we see the ribs, but the ribs are more defined, like ammonite ribs, like these are the imprint. These things over here. Let's just get a good comparative thing. That's probably fine. Like these are these. But they have since been eroded so substantially that they have begun to be turned into these. Oh man, I don't. That was no agreement to anything. Was I done with that one? Not really. We can also see if we go back here that through again. Little opening. Tiny little pore though, just a little pore. Shape over here. Incredible. It gives me the impression, this one, that it, like this were actual structures, but then because of the circumstances, like it's rounding the edge, it's shaping the chakra. It's not just like cutting it and then turning the ribs into dendrites. It's cutting it and shaping it, but using the original cut shape to shape. So it still has the chakra features, but has yet to fully erode them away. But has begun to erode them away in a manner where it's actually shaped like a arced across this way, ribs across this way, but it has not unshaped ribs this way. So it still has this rib partially eroded in a way and reshaped in the area to basically just cut across it like that. This one over. These are overprinting what was previously there, eroding around it, but the rib is still there to be eroded. Possibly different chakra precise positions at play too. I'm still trying to think it through completely, like three-dimensionally, if this makes sense as I'm saying it and thinking it, because I think it makes sense just looking at it, but when I like try to visualize it physically, like would there have been a rib like right here? It kind of feels like it would have been further out if the chakra had been eroded, so it seems like maybe not, but it could also just be like eroding behind it, almost like grinding it down and kind of making it move at the position of the rib while the rib structure isn't actually moved, like, or isn't removed. So that one's crazy. Couple holes there, like what's up with that? It's almost like currents coming out of those positions. Some arcs here. This happens a lot in shaligrams. I think I gotta go. I'm just trying to think if there's any of these. One of them I feel like I really wanted to talk about that I don't know if I got to. Let me look around. This one's a lot like the broken shaligram with the current over top this segment. Let me see if I can find it. Broken in that is I have it and it is now broken. Into about 4 pieces. I could show the pictures of it there. I gotta, let's go to Etsy. And then my favorites, where are my favorites? Favorites. Here it is. Here it is. The way current flow is going over top, and then wrap over top here, wrapping around the side, but over the top here. Very much like what's going on here. Different outcome, but very similar. Thought I would save it for that reason. I haven't really looked at the Shaligram. It's got interesting shapes to it. This is from Tatva Jewelry. I think the other ones were all Mangalum Jewelry. This one I thought was cool because of the just shale. It's like so black. There's like no pyrite visible except in a certain couple like little locations. It almost looks like it was coated with shale, like a spray of shale coating it that just kind of gave it a sheen, black shale look. This one, like, why does this chakra go down and then back up and over? It's physically narrowing. Pointed. Whoa. Whoa. Wow, the way that is. That looks almost like it's forming a chakra here kind of thing. Like it could have eroded this into a chakra here. This was the dominant eddy position, but current coming out of here maybe was like kind of eddying also in this area. Centralized location eddying, like a smaller feedback loop that was eddying there, but dominantly eddying here. And then it goes around. Some interesting features where it eroded in ways that we've came across before. This I thought was crazy. Like it eroded arcs over here. Incredible. As it comes across like a spray. Like right across this way. It erodes down, especially down here, some arcs. Seems like maybe another current was going around the other way above, and it was going this way here above it, and it went basically like between resistance here and went this way. It went across and then up that way, kind of divided, or not divided away from the surface of here, the boundary. Very cool Shaligram. No, there was another one that I was like, that's incredible. And this one's got like chakras forming here and lobe type thing. Just subtly in the back of the ammonite, back of the Shaligram. Spiral one, that was spiral ammonite, like along here, that's typically, but actually spiraling to have like a stoop, like spiral arms of a galaxy, or an eddy that has like the spiral arms. This one looks almost like it's like coming out of a wall. Like the movies where like like Star Wars or whatever. Like when Han Solo's in the wall, anything that someone's in a wall looks kind of like it's coming out of a wall. I don't know. This like this chakra area looks kind of flat, a little too flat across here. I don't know if it is. It just kind of looks it. And then again, that area where current flows through here, eroding that spot. Etching back there going on. Okay. Okay. I got to go. I got to go. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure. Hope this was interesting, informative, and thought-provoking. I love Shaligrams. It is what it is. They're just amazing. Before I go, I swear there's another one. It's gonna bug me. That I really thought maybe I should talk about also. I guess not. Alright, I'm out. I gotta go. Peace out. Thanks for hanging.